The sun was setting over the wide, open plains, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The wind blew gently across the land, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant pine. On this quiet evening, a lone cowboy rode slowly back to his small, weathered ranch. His horse, steady and patient, seemed to know the rhythm of the land, and the cowboy, though tired from a long day of work, felt a sense of peace as he looked over the endless horizon. Life on the plains had taught him patience, hard work, and the value of silence. For many years, he had lived alone, his days filled with tending cattle, fixing fences, and walking the rugged land that had been his home for as long as he could remember. He had grown used to the quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when no one is around to disturb you, and the only sounds are the wind, the occasional bird, or the soft steps of a grazing herd. Yet, even in his solitude, he felt a responsibility toward the land and everything that lived upon it. He had seen the harshness of life on the plains, and he knew how unforgiving nature could be. But he had also seen moments of beauty, moments that reminded him that life, even in its toughest moments, could hold small, precious gifts. As he approached the ranch, he noticed something unusual in the distance. A figure appeared near the edge of a dry creek, moving slowly and unsteadily. At first, he thought it might be an animal, perhaps a stray calf or a lost horse. But as he got closer, he realized it was a young woman. She seemed weak, her movements unsteady, and she was carrying nothing but a small bundle that looked like it had been her only possession for days. Something about her made the cowboy slow his horse, a sense of concern rising in him. When he reached her, he could see that she was exhausted. Her clothes were dusty and torn in places, and her skin was sunburned from long hours under the harsh sun. Her eyes, however, were alert, bright, and full of life, though they carried the shadow of fear and uncertainty. She looked young, barely out of her teenage years, but there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. The cowboy called out gently, trying not to startle her. "Hey there, are you all right?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. The girl flinched at first, taking a step back, but then she realized he meant no harm. She nodded slightly, though she did not speak. Her lips were dry, and it was clear she had not had water for some time. The cowboy could see the fatigue in her eyes, the way her shoulders sagged under the weight of exhaustion and fear. He dismounted slowly, keeping his movements careful and deliberate, showing her that he came in peace. "Here," he said softly, holding out a canteen of water. "You look like you could use a drink." She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she could trust him. Then, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes, she reached for the canteen and took small, careful sips. The water was cool and refreshing, and as she drank, her body seemed to relax just a little. The cowboy watched her closely, noting every movement, ready to help if she needed it. "My name's Jack," he said after a moment, hoping to ease the tension. "You're safe here. Don't be afraid." The girl nodded again, finally finding her voice. I'm Lila," she whispered. The name came out barely audible, but it carried a weight, a story behind it that Jack could sense, even without her saying anything further. Jack helped her to the ranch slowly, making sure she could keep her balance. The ride was quiet, with only the soft sounds of the horse's hooves and the distant call of birds breaking the silence. When they arrived at the ranch, Jack led her inside, offering her a chance to rest. He brought her a warm blanket and some simple food, bread, cheese, and a few fruits he had saved from his small garden. Lila ate slowly, still wary but grateful. Jack watched her carefully, making sure she was comfortable, but he did not rush her. As the evening deepened into night, Jack built a small fire outside, letting the warmth and light fill the space around the ranch. The stars began to appear, bright and countless, stretching across the sky in a silent display that reminded Jack why he loved this land so much. Lila sat nearby, wrapped in the blanket, staring at the sky as if trying to remember something long forgotten. Jack did not press her to talk. He knew that trust could not be forced, that some things had to be given freely. Over the next few days, Jack helped Lila regain some of her strength. He gave her clean clothes, a warm bed, and simple guidance on the routines of the ranch. She was cautious at first, moving carefully around the animals, unsure of what to expect. But she learned quickly, her movements becoming more confident. Her eyes brighter with each passing day. Jack admired her resilience, the quiet determination she carried despite everything she had endured. During these days, Jack also learned a little about Lila's past. She had been traveling with her family but had become separated during a long journey through the harsh desert lands. She spoke of her home with a mixture of love and sadness, remembering the faces and voices of those she had lost along the way. Jack listened patiently, never judging, never interrupting. He offered only support, understanding that her story was hers to tell, and that trust had to grow naturally. It was during one of these quiet evenings, sitting by the fire and listening to the wind whisper through the grass, that Jack realized something important. Life on the plains had taught him many things: how to survive, how to endure, how to work tirelessly from sunrise to sunset. But it had also taught him the value of compassion, the strength that comes from helping another without expecting anything in return. Lila, in her quiet bravery, reminded him of that lesson in a way that words could not fully capture. As the days turned into a week, Jack and Lila fell into a rhythm. She helped with small chores around the ranch, feeding the animals, fetching water, and learning to care for the land in ways that mirrored Jack's own practices. He taught her how to ride a horse properly, how to handle the livestock gently but firmly, and how to read the weather signs that could mean the difference between a good day and a dangerous one. She was a quick learner, and Jack found himself impressed by her intelligence and her curiosity about the world around her. Though neither spoke of it directly, a bond began to form between them, a bond built not on words, but on shared experiences, quiet understanding, and mutual respect. Jack knew that his life had been lonely for a long time, but the presence of Lila brought a new sense of purpose. It was not romance or friendship in the usual sense. It was something deeper, something that reminded him of the value of human connection, of looking out for someone who could not yet stand completely on their own. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched across the plains, Lila finally spoke more openly. I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You didn't have to help me. You could have ignored me, but you didn't." Jack smiled gently, brushing the dirt from his hands. "You don't need to thank me. Everyone deserves a little kindness now and then," he replied. "I've had my share of lonely days, but helping you, it just felt right." Lila looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and something unspoken. In that moment, Jack realized that life had a way of surprising him. Even on these quiet plains, he had never expected to find someone like Lila wandering into his life, and yet here she was, reminding him of the simplest, most important truths: that kindness matters, that trust can be built slowly, and that sometimes people come into your life exactly when they are meant to. As night fully settled, the wind carried the distant sounds of coyotes and the soft rustle of grass. Jack and Lila sat by the fire, not speaking, but simply existing in the shared comfort of safety and understanding. The stars above seemed endless, and the world, though vast and often harsh, felt a little smaller and warmer in that moment. Jack knew that this was only the beginning of a journey, one filled with challenges, lessons, and unexpected connections, but for now, he was content. He had helped someone in need, and in doing so, he had discovered a new sense of purpose. A reminder that even in the quietest, loneliest places, there could be hope, trust, and the beginnings of something meaningful. And so, life on the ranch continued, with Jack and Lila moving together through the days, slowly building trust, understanding, and a bond that neither fully understood yet, but that promised to shape both of their lives in ways neither could have predicted. The plains stretched endlessly around them, wild and free. And in the heart of that vast land, two people found a connection that went beyond words, a reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of kindness can change lives forever. The days passed quietly on the ranch, yet each one brought new challenges and new moments of connection. Lila, the young Apache girl, was slowly regaining her strength. Her steps became steadier, her voice grew stronger, and the color returned to her cheeks. Jack, the cowboy, observed her with a mixture of care and quiet admiration. He had seen many people struggle in the harsh conditions of the plains, but there was something about Lila that made him take notice. She was not only resilient but also curious about the world around her. Each morning began with the sun rising over the horizon, painting the sky with soft pinks and golds. Jack and Lila would start their day with simple tasks. They fed the animals, first the cows, chickens, and a few goats that roamed near the ranch. Lila learned quickly, understanding the subtle language of the animals, the way a cow's eyes could tell you if it was nervous, or how a chicken's movements could indicate the weather. Jack watched her carefully, teaching her patiently and gently. He had spent years learning these lessons himself, and now he was passing them on. After feeding the animals, they would work on the land. Jack showed her how to repair fences, a task that required both strength and patience. Lila struggled at first, but she never gave up. Each time a post was hammered or a board replaced, Jack offered encouragement. "Not bad," he would say with a small smile. "Keep going, you're learning fast." Lila would respond with a shy smile, grateful for the guidance. She could feel herself becoming stronger, more capable, and it filled her with confidence she had not felt in a long time. During their work, they often spoke about small things, the weather, the animals, the changing seasons. But gradually, their conversations became deeper. Lila began to share stories from her childhood, tales of her family, her village, and the long journeys she had taken. Jack listened, never interrupting, offering only the comfort of his presence. He could see the pain in her eyes when she spoke of her family being lost along the way. Yet he also noticed the strength she carried despite her hardships. One day, while they were mending a section of the fence, Lila paused and looked out over the plains. "I used to walk through lands like this with my mother and my sister," she said quietly. "We would travel for days, sometimes without water or food. But we always stayed together. I lost them on one journey, and I've been alone since." Jack stopped what he was doing and looked at her. There was a heaviness in her words that touched him deeply. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I won't let anything happen to you while you're here. You don't have to face this alone anymore." Lila nodded, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to relax, trusting that Jack meant what he said. She could feel a sense of security she had not experienced since being separated from her family. This trust was fragile at first, built slowly with each kind, action, and gentle word from Jack, but it grew steadily, becoming the foundation for the bond that was forming between them. Evenings were different. After the day's work, they would sit by the fire outside the small ranch cabin. Jack would tend the flames while Lila cleaned and prepared simple food. Sometimes they ate in silence, listening to the wind and the distant cries of animals. Other times, they spoke quietly about their lives, sharing small details that helped them understand each other better. Jack learned about Apache traditions from Lila, how her people valued family, community, and respect for the land. Lila learned about the life of a cowboy, the solitude, the long days, and the quiet rewards of living close to the earth. One particular evening, the conversation turned to dreams and hopes. Lila spoke of wanting to return to her village someday, to see her family and reunite with those she had lost. Her eyes shone with both sadness and determination. Jack listened, offering quiet support. "You'll get there," he said. "I'll help you however I can. You deserve to see them again." The days continued in this rhythm. Jack found himself watching Lila more closely than he realized. He noticed the way her eyes lit up when she learned something new, how her laughter sounded when she found small joys in the world, and how her determination inspired him. He felt a sense of responsibility, not because he had to protect her, but because he wanted to. This was different from anything he had felt before, something deeper than friendship, though he did not fully understand it yet. Lila also began to notice Jack. She saw the kindness in his actions, the patience in his voice, and the strength in his work. She admired the way he treated the land, the animals, and even her, with respect and care. Slowly, she began to trust him completely, sharing not only her stories but also her fears. She spoke of nights in the desert when she was cold and alone, of hunger and worry, and of the loneliness that had followed her for weeks. Jack listened, offering only comfort and understanding, never judgment. One day, while working near the creek, Lila stumbled slightly, and Jack was there in an instant, steadying her. "Careful," he said gently. "You're stronger than you realize. But don't push yourself too hard." Lila smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She appreciated his concern, not as a burden, but as a sign of genuine care. She began to understand that Jack was someone she could rely on, someone who would not abandon her, no matter the circumstances. That realization brought a sense of peace she had not known in a long time. As the days turned into weeks, Lila became an integral part of the ranch. She helped with chores, learned to ride a horse with confidence, and even began to anticipate the needs of the animals and the land. Jack watched with pride as she grew stronger, more capable, and more self-assured. He saw a young woman emerging from the shadows of fear and exhaustion into someone who could face the world with courage. Despite their growing bond, Jack never overstepped. He maintained clear boundaries, treating Lila with the respect she deserved. Their connection was built on trust, not expectation, and this made it stronger. Lila respected him in return, not only as a protector but as someone who valued her as an individual. Their days were filled with work, learning, and quiet companionship. And in this rhythm, both found comfort and purpose. One afternoon, while repairing a section of the barn, Lila paused and looked at Jack. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. "You don't have to do this. You could ignore me and let me fend for myself." Jack leaned on his hammer, considering her question. "Maybe I've been alone too long," he said slowly. "Or maybe I know what it's like to need someone's help. You didn't ask for this, but you're here now. And I'm not going to turn my back on you. Sometimes, helping someone else is the right thing to do, even if it's hard." Lila nodded, understanding more than words could express. She realized that Jack's actions were not about reward or recognition, but about doing what was right. This understanding deepened her trust, and with trust came a sense of belonging. For the first time since being lost, she felt that she had a place where she mattered, where she was safe, and where her presence was valued. As the sun set over the plains, casting long shadows across the ranch, Jack and Lila sat quietly, reflecting on the days that had passed. The wind carried the scent of dry grass and the distant sound of running water. The world beyond the ranch seemed vast and unpredictable. Yet, within the small boundary of land they shared, there was peace, safety, and a growing sense of connection. Jack thought about the journey ahead, how to help Lila reunite with her family, how to ensure she was safe, and how to guide her without taking over her life. He knew that trust was not something to be rushed, that every day offered an opportunity to build it stronger. Lila, meanwhile, thought about the kindness and patience Jack had shown her, and she felt a quiet gratitude that grew each day. Their bond continued to strengthen with each passing moment. It was not the kind of bond born out of romance, but one rooted in respect, care, and shared experience. Lila felt safe. Jack felt purposeful. And together they discovered the simple yet profound truth that helping another human being could change both their lives. In the quiet of the evening, as the stars appeared and the fire crackled, they both understood that this period of their lives would remain with them forever. They were learning from each other, growing together, and preparing for the challenges that the future might bring. The trust they had built, the bond they had formed, and the mutual respect they had developed were the foundations for whatever came next. And so, life on the ranch continued, filled with work, learning, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Jack and Lila moved through their days side by side, each teaching the other lessons about resilience, patience, and the power of kindness. Though the journey ahead remained uncertain, both knew that together they could face it, strengthened by the trust and care that had grown between them. The quiet rhythm of the ranch was suddenly interrupted one morning when a rider appeared on the distant horizon. Jack was tending to the horses when he first noticed the figure moving steadily toward the ranch. At first, he thought it might be a neighbor or a traveler passing through. But as the rider came closer, he could see that it was a woman. She rode with purpose, her posture straight, her gaze determined. There was a weight in her presence, as if she carried the worries of the world on her shoulders. Yet there was also a quiet strength that immediately drew attention. Jack felt a twinge of curiosity mixed with caution. He had been alone for so long, and now this stranger seemed different. As she dismounted near the ranch gate, Jack approached carefully, keeping his hand visible so as not to startle her. The woman's eyes met his, and for a moment, there was silence. Then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I'm looking for someone," she said. "Her name is Lila." Jack's heart tightened. He had not expected anyone to come searching for her so soon. Lila had become part of his daily life, and though he had known this moment might come, he was still unprepared. "You mean the girl I'm helping?" he asked gently. "She's here, safe." Relief washed over the woman's face, quickly followed by gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice softening. "I've been searching for her for days. She got separated from us, and I feared the worst." Jack nodded, understanding more than words could convey. He had spent time with Lila, learning her story, and he knew how fragile trust could be for someone who had endured so much. He led the woman toward the cabin, where Lila was waiting. As Lila saw her mother approaching, her eyes widened in surprise and joy. She ran forward, and for the first time in weeks, she was enveloped in the warmth of family. The reunion was quiet at first, full of cautious steps and gentle touches, but it was filled with deep emotion. The woman, Lila's mother, embraced her daughter tightly, tears welling in her eyes. "You're safe," she whispered. "Thank God you're safe." Lila clung to her mother, feeling a sense of security she had longed for during her lonely days. Jack watched silently, his heart filled with a mixture of happiness and relief. He had played a small part in this reunion, and that thought brought a quiet satisfaction he could not put into words. Over the next few days, the mother stayed at the ranch. She needed time to rest and recover from the long journey she had taken to find her daughter. Jack helped prepare meals, guided her around the property, and ensured she had everything she needed. Though initially reserved, the woman began to open up, sharing stories of their life before the separation, of the hardships they had faced, and the small joys that had kept them going. Jack listened patiently, never interrupting, showing respect for her experiences and the strength she carried. As they spent more time together, Jack began to notice the quiet grace in her movements, the way she carried herself with confidence despite the exhaustion of travel. She had a strength that reminded him of Lila's courage, yet it was tempered with wisdom and gentleness. Jack found himself drawn to her in ways he had not expected. It was not just admiration, there was a warmth that stirred inside him, a recognition of shared values and understanding. The mother, too, began to notice Jack. She saw the patience in his eyes, the respect in his actions, and the kindness in his words. She realized that he had cared for her daughter without expecting anything in return, that he had provided safety and guidance purely out of compassion. This impressed her deeply. She felt a growing sense of trust toward him, and with that trust came a quiet curiosity about the man who had become so important to her daughter. Jack and the woman began to spend time together naturally. Simple tasks brought them into shared moments: preparing meals, repairing fences, tending to animals. They spoke quietly, exchanging stories and laughter, discovering common ground. Jack learned about the woman's life, her hopes, and her values. She spoke of the importance of family, of loyalty, and of facing challenges with courage and grace. Jack realized that these were values he shared, and this recognition deepened his respect and admiration for her. One afternoon, while mending a section of the fence together, the woman paused and looked at Jack. "I've seen how you've helped Lila," she said softly. "You didn't have to. And yet, You did? Why? Jack thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I know what it's like to need someone, he replied. I've spent a long time alone, and I've learned that kindness matters. Helping someone who needs it, it's the right thing to do, even if it isn't easy. Lila needed help, and I could give it. That's all, the woman nodded, understanding his answer. She felt a warmth spreading through her, a recognition of the goodness in him. It was rare to meet someone so genuine, someone who acted out of care rather than expectation. She realized that Jack's presence at the ranch had changed not only Lila's life, but hers as well. Over the following days, the bond between Jack and the woman grew stronger. They discovered shared interests and values, finding comfort in each other's company. Simple conversations by the fire turned into long talks about life, family, and the challenges they had faced. Laughter began to fill the spaces between words, and moments of quiet reflection became moments of connection. Lila watched these interactions with curiosity and joy. She could see that her mother had found someone who respected her, cared for her, and shared her values. It gave her a sense of peace, knowing that her mother was not only reunited with her, but also finding companionship and understanding in a world that had often been harsh and unpredictable. One evening, as the sun set over the plains, Jack and the woman sat together, watching the sky change colors. The wind carried the scent of grass and wildflowers, and the distant sounds of animals created a peaceful backdrop. Jack felt a sense of calm he had not known in years. The presence of the woman, and the knowledge that Lila was safe, brought him a deep sense of fulfillment. The woman looked at Jack, her eyes reflecting gratitude and something more, a quiet admiration that she could not fully name. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You've given us something we both needed. Safety, care, and trust. I can't put it into words. Jack shook his head gently. You don't have to thank me, he replied. I did what anyone would do if they could. And besides, it feels good to see you and Lila together again. That's enough for me. Days turned into weeks, and life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Lila thrived under the care of both her mother and Jack, growing stronger and more confident each day. The mother found comfort in the ranch life, discovering a sense of peace she had not felt for a long time. And Jack, who had spent so many years in solitude, found himself drawn to the woman in ways that surprised him. Their connection was quiet at first, built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and the simple act of being there for each other. They discovered a natural ease in each other's presence, a sense of understanding that did not require words. Jack admired her strength, her wisdom, and the way she cared for Lila. She admired his kindness, his patience, and the steady presence he provided in their lives. One afternoon, as they worked together repairing a broken section of the barn, the woman looked at Jack and smiled. You've done more than I could have imagined, she said. Not just for Lila, but for me as well. I feel safer, happier, and more at peace than I have in a long time. Jack returned her smile, feeling a warmth spread through him. It wasn't hard, he said. You and Lila brought life to this place. I just helped a little along the way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plains, Jack and the woman shared a quiet moment of understanding. They did not need to speak of their feelings, for their actions and presence spoke volumes. There was a growing bond between them, a connection rooted in trust, respect, and the shared experience of caring for Lila. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt a sense of belonging. He had lived alone for years, finding comfort in the quiet of the land. But now, with Lila safe and her mother present, he felt a deeper sense of purpose. He realized that life had a way of bringing people together in unexpected ways, often through acts of kindness and trust. The woman, too, began to see Jack in a new light. She recognized the strength in his character, the gentleness in his heart, and the reliability in his actions. She felt a growing admiration and respect for him, and with that came a quiet curiosity about what the future might hold. Evenings at the ranch became a time for shared reflection, and quiet companionship. They would sit together by the fire, watching the stars, sharing stories, and simply enjoying each other's presence. The bond that had begun with Lila's safety and care had grown into something deeper, something neither of them had expected, but both welcomed with open hearts. Through these days, Jack and the woman discovered the power of trust, the value of kindness, and the beauty of shared experience. They learned that love and connection could grow quietly, naturally, without force or expectation. And in the midst of this new chapter, they both realized that life on the plains, though challenging and unpredictable, had brought them together in a way that would shape the rest of their lives. The days after Lila's reunion with her mother passed with a sense of quiet happiness on the ranch. Lila was thriving, her laughter filling the air, and her mother was gradually settling into a routine alongside Jack. Life was no longer the quiet, solitary existence it had been for him. It was filled with purpose, work, and the comforting presence of people who mattered. Jack began to notice subtle changes within himself, feelings he had not experienced in years, a warmth that grew quietly in his heart each day. It started with small moments. He saw the way Lila's mother would pause in the mornings to watch the sunrise, appreciating the beauty of the plains, just as he had done for years. He noticed her gentle care for Lila, the patience and understanding she showed when guiding her daughter through small chores or teaching her lessons from the past. He admired the quiet strength she carried in her words, her actions, and even her silence. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, a connection began to grow between them. At first, it was subtle. They would share a glance across the yard while feeding the animals or repairing fences. Sometimes, a quiet conversation would stretch into hours as they spoke about life, family, and the hardships they had faced. Jack found himself listening intently, learning from her experiences and reflecting on his own. He realized that their lives, though different, were connected by similar values: honesty, care, and respect for those they loved. The woman also noticed Jack. She saw how he worked tirelessly, not just for the ranch, but to ensure that Lila was safe and happy. She observed the patience in his movements, the gentleness in his tone, and the way he offered guidance without ever being overbearing. Slowly, she began to trust not only his intentions but his heart. She could see that Jack was someone who could be relied upon, someone whose character matched the strength she valued in others. One afternoon, as they worked side by side repairing a broken fence post, the woman paused to look at Jack. "I never expected life to bring me here," she said softly, "but somehow, it feels like this place, this moment, was meant to be." Jack looked at her, understanding more than she said. "Sometimes life surprises us," he replied gently. "We don't get to choose every path, but we do get to choose how we move forward. You and Lila coming here, it changed everything for me too. In ways I didn't know I needed." She smiled, a quiet warmth spreading through her chest. There was an honesty in Jack's words, a sincerity that touched her deeply. She realized that he had become more than just a helper or friend. He had become someone she could trust, someone who understood her and cared for her without expectation. Evenings became a cherished time. After the day's work, they would sit together by the fire, sharing stories of the past and hopes for the future. Jack would sometimes speak of his years living alone on the plains, the hardships he had faced, and the lessons he had learned. The woman would share tales of her family, her life before the journey, and the dreams she held for herself and for Lila. These quiet moments became the foundation of their growing bond, a connection built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared experiences. Lila watched them with a sense of happiness. She could see that her mother and Jack shared a natural understanding, a silent communication that spoke louder than words. She felt safe knowing that both of them cared for her and for each other. For Lila, this new chapter of life was filled with warmth, security, and the simple joy of seeing her family together. One day, while tending to the garden, the woman paused and looked at Jack. "You've done more than I could have asked," she said, "not just for Lila, but for me. You've shown us kindness, patience, and respect. I I don't know how to fully explain what it means. Jack smiled, brushing dirt from his hands. I didn't do it for thanks, he replied. I did it because it felt right. Because helping someone in need, it's just the way life should be sometimes. And seeing you and Lila happy, safe, and together, that's all the reward I need. Her eyes softened, reflecting a mix of gratitude and admiration. She realized that Jack's actions were not born of obligation, but of genuine care. And in that realization, her heart opened in ways she had not expected. There was a warmth growing between them, quiet, yet undeniable. Built on shared respect and the experience of caring for Lila together. As the weeks passed, their bond deepened. They shared daily tasks, feeding animals, repairing fences, gathering firewood, but also shared quiet moments of reflection. Jack began to learn more about her life, her values, and the dreams she held. She learned about his years of solitude, his love for the land, and the quiet strength he drew from the rhythm of ranch life. Each conversation, each shared moment, brought them closer together. One evening, under a sky full of stars, they sat together on a small hill overlooking the ranch. The plains stretched endlessly before them, bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. Jack broke the silence first. I never thought I'd find someone I could trust like this, he said quietly, not just for friendship, but for more. Someone who understands life, someone who cares deeply, someone who can share it all without judgment. The woman turned to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight and a quiet emotion she could not name. I feel the same, she replied softly. I never imagined I could find this trust, this understanding, this sense of connection. But here it is, growing quietly, naturally, and I don't want to lose it. Growing, 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 growing. Jack reached out and gently took her hand. There was no rush, no pressure, just a simple touch that spoke volumes. In that moment, they both realized that their bond had grown into something deeper, something meaningful. It was a connection built not on fleeting feelings, but on respect, shared experiences, and genuine care. Life on the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Lila thrived under the guidance of both her mother and Jack, growing stronger, more confident, and happier each day. Her laughter filled the ranch, a reminder of the simple joys that life could bring. The woman found comfort in the presence of Jack, realizing that she had discovered a partner who respected her, shared her values, and offered steady support. Jack, in turn, felt a sense of fulfillment and happiness he had not known in years. One afternoon, while walking through the fields, the woman looked at Jack and spoke with quiet sincerity. I never expected this, she said. I came here searching for my daughter, and I found so much more. I found someone who cares, someone I can trust, someone who makes life brighter. Jack smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth he felt in his heart. Life has a way of surprising us, he replied. Sometimes the people we need the most arrive in unexpected ways. You and Lila changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. The bond between them continued to grow, strengthened by daily interactions, shared responsibilities, and quiet companionship. They discovered the beauty of simple moments, watching the sunset, tending the animals together, preparing meals, and sharing stories by the fire. Each moment deepened their connection, creating a foundation for a lasting relationship built on trust, respect, and understanding. As the seasons changed, so did their relationship. Spring brought new life to the ranch, with blooming flowers and growing crops. Lila ran through the fields with joy, her laughter mingling with the sounds of nature. The woman and Jack worked side by side, tending to the land and each other, discovering the quiet joy of partnership. Their love was gentle, unspoken at times, but felt deeply in every shared glance, every supportive word, every act of care. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with brilliant colors. Jack and the woman stood together on the porch of the ranch. Lila sat nearby, playing quietly, unaware of the significance of the moment, but filled with happiness nonetheless. Jack turned to the woman, his voice soft and steady. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I do know that having you here, having you in my life, has made everything better. I don't want to be without you." The woman smiled, her heart full. "And I don't want to be without you," she replied. "We've both been through so much, but here we are stronger, together, and ready to face whatever comes next." In that moment, they understood that their connection was more than coincidence. It was built on trust, care, and the shared experience of helping someone in need. Their love had grown quietly, naturally, and it promised to endure, because it was rooted in respect, understanding, and a deep appreciation for each other's hearts. The ranch, once quiet and solitary, was now filled with life, laughter, and the warmth of family. Jack had found companionship, understanding, and love. Lila had been reunited with her mother, and now thrived under the guidance and care of both. And her mother had found a partner who shared her values, respected her, and offered steady support. Together, they created a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope, trust, and quiet joy. As night fell, the three of them sat by the fire, sharing stories, laughter, and the comforting silence of being together. The stars above shone brightly, a reminder that life, despite its hardships, could bring unexpected happiness and lasting connections. Jack, Lila, and her mother had discovered that even in the most challenging circumstances, trust, kindness, and love could flourish, creating a life richer and more meaningful than any of them had imagined. And so, life on the ranch continued, filled with purpose, connection, and the quiet beauty of human relationships. Jack had opened his heart. Lila had found safety and family, and her mother had found a love that would endure. Together, they faced the future, strengthened by the bonds they had formed, and reminded that even in a vast, unpredictable world, kindness, trust, and love could create a home filled with joy.